All right, welcome to our special lesson. And today we have Michael Keith. And Michael's going to tell us how many books he's written. He's going to give us a lesson about the publishing industry and about writing and writing craft, and how he approaches each genre of his writing.
Is that my cue?
That's it.
Well, hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you all. And thanks, Tim, for inviting me. Tim asked me the other day how many books I'd written, and it seems smug to say 56 books, but then I need to clarify that. Half of them, at least, are academic books. That's where I really started my major thrust into writing. Um, I always think of Hemingway's adage, write about what you know best. And at the time, I'd been in radio as a practitioner for a dozen years. And then, as they say, if you can't do it, you can teach it. So I went into teaching. And that's where I stayed for 40 years, ending up at Boston College for 30 years, excuse me, and retiring a few years ago. During that time, I was aware that how you get ahead in academe, since it's the publisher perish game, that you needed to publish books. And so I started publishing, but what I started publishing were textbooks. um, and I did well at that. In fact, the second textbook I wrote became the most widely adopted text on its subject in America, and it was used overseas and all over the place. So that was a good experience, not to mention the fact that I made money on it. So I continued to write a few more textbooks, and then I got kind of burnt out to it because I like to think of myself as an imaginative person and a creative person, and I wasn't getting the creative satisfaction from writing something kind of formulaic like a textbook. You know what's got to go in there, and you know what you have to do and how you have to structure it. So I shifted over to another academic area of publishing the monograph. That is to say, generally smallish books that deal with an issue in media. I taught communication and electronic media. So I ferreted out areas, I was going to say of controversy, but of areas neglected, that I could write almost a story about, but essentially a history. So the first book I tried was examining the role of Native American radio, and how it came about and what is it. Nobody seemed to know that Native American radio stations existed in America, some 24. And so I started my investigation and ended up with a book called Signals in the Air, which is, to this day, that's 25 years ago, still the only book on the subject. Maybe that reflects how interested people are in a book that deals with Native American radio. But then I went on from there, and I wrote a book about underground radio, commercial underground radio, Voices in the Purple Haze, and a series of other books on that topic. Then I finally got to the point where I was kind of burnt out about that. But let me go back to what Tim had said, the experience with publishers. In academe, it's a different sort of thing than trying to get a book of fiction, poetry, a creative book published. In academe, you know what who you're writing for specifically, and you know the publisher that wants to publish a textbook or a monograph in that area. It's very, very specific. So when you go in with a proposal, you shape the proposal based upon the classroom audience, if you will, and the publisher examines it and gives you a contract. Seldom do they give you money up in front. I got money up in front after I did the textbook that ended up in the first year. It was the best-selling book that publisher had. So the next time I went in there, it was willing to give a few $1,000s up in front to get the next book. But academic writing is based on your reputation as an academic, how relevant your topic is to the existing academic market or the classroom market. So it's easier. It's just easier to publish academic books. But at the end of that, after publishing and authoring and co-authoring 20 volumes, I had thought, I've had enough. Now, I know Margie said she's been working on a memoir for 30 years. Yeah. And so I had been thinking about writing a memoir, maybe not as long as that, but for a long time, 15 years or so. And the first attempt was, I'll write a screenplay and it will be a memoir screenplay. And that went nowhere. And I kind of put it on the back burner. And then I thought, no, you better write a memoir, a book about it. And I did that. And I sent it out. And 15, 20 publishers never heard. And if I did hear, it was that they weren't interested. And then I put it on the back burner again. It was a maturing process, it really was. And then I had a catalyst. It was Frank McCourt's Angela's Ashes. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Hey, Michael, can you describe to folks, you said you sent it out, and you may or may not describe how you sent it out real quick.
Oh, okay. I just went online and looked for fiction publishers or memoir publishers. And if you go to pw.org, or there's a number of places that list publishers, it breaks it down. There's a good site called Duotrope, which some of you may know. It's very good because you can narrow right down to what you're doing, and then they'll list the publishers who are interested. So I tracked publishers and would send it out. Most of over the transom in most cases, because I didn't have representation or an agent. And then I thought, well, this is getting nowhere. Let me see if I can get an agent. And then I sent the thing out to 15, 18, 20 agents and got nothing. Or some of them would say, we like memoirs that are like novels. I thought, oh, okay, whatever the hell that means. So I just, I got nowhere. And then a dear friend of mine, who you might know who he is, he was the voice of public radio. He was the news person on All Things Considered, Corey Flintoff, for many years. He was a high school friend of mine, and we stayed in touch. And then out of the blue, he said, I have a novel at an agent, and I thought, oh, you do, eh? And then I thought about that a little bit and contacted him. And I said, do you mind if I ride your coattails into that agent? If I just simply tell them that a friend of mine, you're handling a friend of mine, and I wonder if you might look at what I have. And he said, no, go ahead, absolutely. So I did that. And sent it to the agent. And in the letter, I'm trying to think 20 years ago whether I did it by email or letter. I think it was email, and sent it in and heard nothing for a month and a half, 2 months. I thought, and I was pissed off by that. I was thinking, Jesus, you can't even, have any luck when someone they're handling doesn't even. I mean, if they had just said, no, we're not interested, thanks for, at least I'd get an answer. So at that point, I was pretty much ready to, I really thought, I'll take the manuscript to Kinko's, I'll make 5 copies of it, and I'll give it to members of my family who really don't know about my childhood, and I'll forget about it. But I was steamed, I was pissed off. So I called the agency up and essentially demanded to speak to the senior agent there. And the secretary said, or the person who answered the phone said, please hold on. The next voice was another person, another woman who wasn't the head of the agency. And I thought, well, I'm getting nowhere here. And I said, hello, this is Michael Keith. And I sent you a memoir, a manuscript called The Next Better Place. And just as I got that out, she says, oh, Michael, we meant to call you. We love that book and we'd like to handle you. Okay, why the hell did you waited for 2 months? But waiting is a part of the writer's process. You know that. And I'm well known for being very impatient. I'm just an impatient person. I've got dear writer friends who are award-winning writers and whatnot, and they don't have a problem with waiting, but I do. Anyway. So she said, uh, uh, we're going to start to send it out. We send it out in batches of 5, and we give them 30 days to respond. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So over the next few months, she would send me the batches of rejections. I'd get like 4 letters, but I was getting the letters from the publishers, not the junior editor or the slush fund or the slush pile editor. I was getting them from the executive acquisitions editor or the publisher. And so there was a difference there. This agent was known in New York City. And so when the submission came into them, they paid attention to it, right? And that made all the difference, even though I was getting these rejections. In fact, the agent said to me, Michael, I don't know if it's any consolation to you, but you've gotten the best rejection letters we've ever seen. I said, oh yeah, that's a lot of consolation. Thank you. So here again, after about 3 months, I was thinking, all right, I've had my shot. I sent it out for years to publishers. I sent it out to agents. I got an agent. She sent it out. That's it. Game up, but at least I gave it. And I was almost content with that. That's when I thought, I'll make copies at Kinko's, right? And then it was one infamous Friday afternoon, I got a call from the agent. And she said, hey, Michael, she said, we got a nibble. Yeah, my heart fluttered. And she said, yeah, she said, it's not the biggest publisher in the world, but it's one of the most prestigious. It's Algonquin Books. She says, and it's a lovely, wonderful publisher, and they're interested in your book. They have one thing they want to talk to you about, though. And I thought, okay, what's that one thing? That'll be the deal killer, right? And she said, they're going to call you. This is Friday. They're going to call you at 10 o'clock Monday morning. Okay. So I said, thank you very much. I part of me was ecstatic about getting a nibble. The other part of me felt, well, if they've got something they want to talk to me about, maybe it's not going to happen, right? So it was one of those weekends. 10 o'clock on the dot on Monday, the phone rings, my heart continues to flutter, and this lady says, hello, Michael. She said, this is so-and-so, senior editor at Algonquin, and I love your book. I love it. She said, it's just wonderful. And she says, there's just one thing. And I felt, here's the boom. Here it comes, right? She said, you need a hook. There has to be a hook somewhere. Like 2/3 of the way in, you need to give people a reason to continue reading to the end. She said, and I don't think that will be a problem for you at all, because I can see what happens there, but you need to be more graphic about it. And as she said that, I knew exactly the hook, and I knew exactly the page it was on. I didn't tell her that, but she said, so if you would do that, send it in to us, and we'll do a contract. I thought, well, that's good. So I hung up the phone, and what did I do next? Oh, I got on the computer, and in 20 minutes, I wrote the hook. It was like half a page. There it was. But I didn't want to send it right back to her, because I thought she's going to be a little wary of this guy if 30 minutes later he sends. And so I waited as much as I could. I waited a day. I sent it in, and she said, oh, it's great. That's it. That's the book. We'll tell your agent we're going to contract you. Bam.
So Michael, would you recommend like a developmental editor to look at a book in advance to see if it's like, is it missing a hook? What does it need? Is that something that you do?
No, I wouldn't recommend it. And maybe it's worked well for other people, so I don't want to say don't do it. I just never have. I do what I do, and I figure if there's enough value in what I've done, if it's just a matter of there being a hook needed somewhere, that's not going to keep it from being published. I don't think. I don't know. I don't know. And a developmental editor, if it's a professional one, is going to cost you money. And that's the development editor's opinion too. If you're confident in what you've written, and you feel it's all there, no, I just, that's my feeling. And anyway, so I called the agent right away and I said, Algonquin said they're going to send you the contract and whatnot. And she said, great, congratulations, da da da. She says, well, we'll ask for $40,000 or $50,000 advance. I went, whoa, wait a second here. You're gonna screw this deal up, I mean, I don't care if I get nothing on this book. It's a great publisher. They're going to publish it. If there's royalties, I'll get those. But I was frightened by what they said, but I didn't tell them. They're an agent. They had Jane Goodall as a client. They had Red Barber. They had major people in there. So I figured, oh, shut your mouth. Well, about 4 days later, they called me up and it's what I expected. They said, well, they didn't go for the 40 grand, but 15 grand, they'll give you 15 grand if they can have the book. And I thought, are you kidding? Why? It's a great publisher and they're going to give me 15,000. Yeah, bam. So anyway, that's that story. In 9 months, it was published as a hardcover and an audio book. It was published by a press in England, and then it was published as a softcover. They asked me if I would narrate the audiobook because I was an announcer for a number of years. I wasn't the least bit interested in it, unless they had offered me they offered me $3,000 to read the book. And I said, nah, I don't think so. If they had offered me 15, I would have said, sure. But they ended up getting a good guy, a good person for it. It's the guy who wrote who did the audiobook for Lance Armstrong. It's not about the book. And he did a good job on the next minute. Anyway, that's the story of publishing a memoir. It's I think this is 20 years ago. I think it's tougher now. I don't want to discourage you, Margie, because I think memoirs have become a cottage industry. It's even kind of a running joke. If you can't write a novel, you can write a memoir. But consequently, there's a million memoirs out there. But I still say, if it's a poignant, vivid, well-written, solid work, you'll find a publisher for it.
So does the advances and using an agent, does that still happen in the literary world? Are there other options?
I'm not sure I get your question too.
Well, you said, you had the agent and you got an advance for your book, but I know in this day and age, some of that stuff doesn't exist, or does it, is my question.
Well, I think there's still agents out there, and I think it's, I discovered it was as tough to get an agent as it was to get a publisher. It's hard to get an agent, and beware that there's a lot of agents out there that are really inexperienced. They don't do a good job. They waste your time. They ask for exclusive rights to sell it. You sit for a year or two. So you got to really do your due diligence on agents to find out what they have sold and how good they are. But if you get a good agent and they do sell your book, yeah, you're going to get an advance. This $15,000 was an advance, which fortunately the book wasn't a runaway bestseller by any means, but it paid off its advance, and I was clean on it. And that's fine. Because all in all it was. And then what's more is because it was a major publisher, that it was reviewed in 30 national venues. Vanity Fair magazine, Entertainment. I mean, it was interviewed all over the place. New York Post, and then they put a quarter-page ad in the New York Times book review. So you don't get much better than that. Unfortunately, the book published the day the Gulf War broke out, and they said that book sales plunged because of that. I don't know why, but they said it really affected new books and book markets, you know. So who knows? Then so the next phase of my publishing, and I should cut this more short so you could ask me some questions. Was I, you know, after doing the memoir, which Tony Early said is half memory and half imagination. I like that about a memoir, half memory and half I think you have to have an imagination to write about your life. You need to have that, you know, and it's the imagination part that flares it, you know. So, uh, 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 so all of my life I've been interested in fiction and writing and imagination. So it was at that point I started writing short stories, which incidentally is a genre I really almost never read. But I started writing short stories, 5 to 15 page short stories, and I discovered that uh, there was a market for them out there as online and as cyber publishers and whatnot, and small online journals and whatnot. So I started sending short stories there, and 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 I ended up publishing 400 short stories on these online journals that then many of them put out a hardcover anthology at the end of the year. So that was kind of an additional payoff. You were in a hardcover anthology, and I did that for a few years, and it was fun. And I think I learned in the process of doing that, and then I got to the point where I thought, you know, what I want to do is I want to publish books of short stories, books, not cyber, you know. I want to, and so I decided I won't send my stories out anymore. I'll compile them. And when I have enough that constitutes a collection, maybe 200 pages, I'll send it out to a short story publications, short story presses. So I did that. And to date, it's been about 8 or 10 years ago, I just did my 27th book of fiction, collection and anthology. As a matter of fact, uh, this just came out, the Loneliness Channel, and so I've had fun doing that. Uh, you know, you're dealing with small presses. There's no money involved. I mean, you don't make money. It's for the love of it. It's to see what you've created between covers. Uh, you know, maybe the biggest complaint of publishing with small presses is they don't have promotion or marketing. Yeah, you know, so it's kind of left up to you to do your social media and whatever you can. And that's why we appear on Dyer, and that's why we appear on Trevino. That's, you know, because that's how we get our exposure. But what was most important to me was that I could realize my imagination and my creative ability in book form. And that's the payoff for me. That is it. I don't give a damn if I get $100 check or what. It's not going to change my life at all. But it does please me and gratify me to have a hard copy book in hand, something I created from various publishers. So
We have a hand up, and it's Eric. Eric, you want to break in and ask?
yeah, so let's questions,
I
please.
would love to ask questions. I also want to defer to Heather, who asked a question in the chat. But Michael, this is great. It's just so refreshing to hear someone speak in depth with your extreme knowledge of things. And Tim, thank you so much for your interviewing ability and for having Michael. I wanted to, my question was, you have multimedia experience, and so did you think to negotiate film rights or any other kind of media rights regarding your memoir with Algonquin? And if not, why not? For the future?
Good question, and I skipped over that. I'm glad you reminded me. When the agent got the contract, when the agent wrote up the contract, the agent told me, "We're going to keep the film rights for you. We're not going to give that away." You know, and that's a better deal, unless the publisher promises you something, So what I did over time, since it was left up to me, the agent wasn't really into selling the film rights. So I put it out there. I got a person in Hollywood or LA who had written and produced a number of documentaries. We co-authored the film version of the memoir, right? And it went to a couple of producers. One producer, as a matter of fact, was said it was the best screenplay he'd seen, had produced movies and whatnot, and we were very high on it. And he killed himself. I kid you not. He committed suicide. Like a month after he was in touch with us, he jumped off a building. I thought, that's not a good omen, So it's flopped around to a few places. It's at this guy who's an agent out there. He's had it for 8 or 9 years. He keeps telling me, don't worry, it's going to get in somewhere. He's now doing a movie with Adam Sandler. And he said that he was going to get Adam Sandler to read it because he felt Adam Sandler would be the good lead for the father in the book. So the thing is that you have to throw it out there and forget about it and go on with your work, because if you just dwell on it, it's going to be very discouraging.
I hear that. I hear that in everything you're saying. I also want to just compliment you on being so approachable, and this is a rare treat. And now I don't want to diminish the tragedy of somebody killing themselves, but now you have a story to tell. They say, well, if this guy liked it, maybe it would be good for you. I mean, it sounds crass, but
No, you're right. You know something? My philosophy is everything is a story. Everything. I don't, if you hear something fall in your yard, there's a story. That's how I approach things. My stories, people say, where do you come up with your stories? I don't come up with the stories. They're around me all the time. Any day I wake up and I'm in the mood to write something, I don't doubt that I can write. And I always do. Within 10 minutes, I write microfiction, and they're less than a paragraph long. Some are 1 or 2 or 3 lines long. But I've written 5, 6, 7 of those in a day if I feel in the mood to. So I know anytime I can write as much as I want to write, and I can put them in a book, because everything, don't wait for an idea, just open your ears. Just open your eyes. There's your story. It's right.
Have you ever thought about the screenplay that's been sitting there for 8 or 9 years, since it's such a good screenplay, entering in screenplay competitions?
No, I've never thought about that. I'm not big at entering contests or competitions. I never have. With all the books I've done, I've never once submitted it to any kind of competition. Maybe I'm lazy. In terms of books, I've always felt if it's contest worthy, you'll be nominated. You don't have to mess with it. That's naive, because I know a lot of people who submit their works. Unfortunately, now you have to pay to submit, and it's generally it's $10, but now it's up to $30 or $40. How many of those are you going to send out? And a lot of people who have done it haven't even heard back.
So I think we should have the Keith Gager screenplay competition, and cost everyone $40.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we can give them a sticker. We give them a sticker and a Databoy and all kinds of good winnings.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because we know what it's like.
And Heather's got a question about advances. Does the advance come out of the projected sales profits? Do you have to pay back advances at all if the sales are too low?
Yeah. What I got, the 15,000, was an advance against royalties. So my book made enough to pay that back. If they give you an advance, 50 grand or something like that, and royalties only constitute $20,000, you owe them 30,000. Now, I don't know how aggressive they are at coming after you.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone.
No,
I
don't
mean, I
think
would,
they'll
I
do
would, I'd be like, yeah, I just,
Yeah,
I
right.
don't have my checkbook handy.
Yeah, they write it off. They write it off. Yeah, or they say, well, a lot of contracts say they have the right to see your next book, right? So they might think, well, okay, let's see what you've done next, and we're not going to give you any advance on that. That's the payoff. You know.
What rights should you own and what rights should a publisher own? Like what's reasonable?
Well, I think oh, yeah, that's a complex question. Generally, I think they have the rights to the first edition and subsequent the first edition, and if they're going to do subsequent editions, yes, fine. If it sells that well, they're going to put it out. That's to your advantage. That's to your benefit. I think if you're dealing with a really prominent publishing house. Then they're going to be on the up and up. And if they say that they feel that they can sell your book as a screenplay, yeah, go to it. Because once you're out there on your own and you don't have representation, then you're kind of back to zero again, looking for a producer or some kind of studio or somebody that can fund it. And that's really difficult. That's very hard. So the audio book that they did, that was part of the contract. They wanted the audiobook, and they wanted the foreign editions. They wanted to sell, and they wanted soft cover edition rights, and all of that. I was fine with. They sold it to a company in England as the international version of it. And they did the audio book, as I mentioned to you, and then they shopped it as a soft cover. But I think because it wasn't a huge seller or whatnot, they had some difficulty there. They did get an offer from a pretty good size softcover publishing company, but it wasn't enough to make to encourage them to sell it to them, because they decided we want to do the soft cover of this book. And they did a nice job on the soft cover. So that's what I know about that.
What about these days when you're out on your own? You're saying your promotion is all about appearances. Have you ever tried any of the other? I mean, of course, now that TikTok's gonna be illegal, I guess there go your sales. But what I'm saying is, have you tried any of other methods for selling besides word of mouth and appearances?
Not really. I mean, social media, I've done Facebook and Twitter and places like that. I haven't, some people have bought additional exposure on Amazon and on Facebook. I just never have. But beyond that, that's about it. My thing is, my goal is to publish a book. My goal is to get it out there, get it on Amazon, get it some exposure, and go on to the next one. I'm just not going to spend 5 years trying to pump up something, because as much as you try to pump it up, it's hard. It's not easy.
Do you write every day?
No. In the last few weeks, I've been suffering from chronic dry eye. And my eyes have been, you probably can't tell here, swollen and itchy and whatnot. And I also have glaucoma, which is high eye pressures. So I've been dealing with eye drops and eye drops and eye drops, and they tend to blur your vision. And if I'm on if I'm online long, or if I'm reading, I don't have a long time before my vision starts to blur up. So lately I haven't. Hopefully that'll be resolved, but lately I have. But generally, I go through these periods where I'm fueled. I'm just fueled, and every day I'm in that mindset. I'm in that world, and so my brain is open to being sensitive. My radar is out there picking up things, and when it comes in, I I go, wow, okay. When I walk my dog down the street, half the time, boom, something hits me. There's a bird hovering overhead. Boom, there's a story. So I come back home, I sit down, and because they're microfiction, in 10, 15 minutes, I have the piece. Now you have to maybe go back and edit it. It's kind of an inspiration thing. I think I've been distracted by the medical thing. And then in our family, there's been a lot of sickness and a lot of people going through stuff. I have two best friends in the last year and a half who have died. And so I've just kind of been drawn away from being in that place, But I'm confident anytime I want to go to that place, I'll go to it. The other thing too, and Tim could probably relate to this, when you've done a certain amount of books, I've got something that will be almost my 30th book of fiction collection, kind of the enthusiasm and the desire, because you start saying, does the world need any more of what I do? Do I need to spend my time banging my head looking for presses, So that's a good place to be, I suppose you could say, if that's something that was your ambition to publish a book. But when you've done it for 40 years and whatnot, you kind of wind down a little bit,
Sounds like you need a best of edition.
Yeah, well, I kind of have one. I think you were at the reading. About 5 years ago, I did a book for Regal House
That's right.
Publishing,
Yeah.
which has become very, very big and very prestigious. When I went into it 5 years ago, it had only been around a year or two. They published a book of mine that was a mix. It was called Stories in the Key of Me. And it was a combination of kind of the best things I'd done and some new things and whatnot. But that was then. And I have another book coming out sometime this year that is really, my capstone publication. It's all of my best microfiction mingled in with new fiction. It's called Pings, P-I-N-G-S, New and Selected Nanoscopic Prose Poetry.
Awesome.
And that, and so you kind of look back and say, well, you did the best of, and you've been there, and do you have to? And I like, I mentor in writing and whatnot. I kind of like that. That's refreshing to me to be here and to talk about it. It's, you're all writers, so it's refreshing to commiserate. It's refreshing to talk to other people who kind of are where you're at, trying to do what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
It helps.
We've got two hands up, so let's go to Ray first, and then Eric's got another question.
Yeah.
Michael, in the interest of paying it forward, can we reach out to your agent and tell them that we know you and see if they'll read what we have?
My agent has pretty much gone.
Oh, okay.
Or I would say, I'm sure but yeah, as a matter of fact, I was in touch with them a number of years ago, and the guy who owned it retired, and one of his assistants took it over, and then I never heard anything from it. So apparently the people that were with it went somewhere else. So,
Okay, Eric, what do you got?
You got, Michael, what's new on your horizon? If you're talking about, if you had a bucket list and you had 3 items to do, what would they be?
That's a good question. I guess it would be to see my screenplay of my memoir get into production and get involved in maybe the activity of that, the writing of that. That would be cool. It sounds smug to say. It's almost like when someone says I've done it all. What I look forward to right now, the next 3 things, is I have 3 new manuscripts. 3 right now. I have one coming out Pings will come out in June. The other one is at another publisher called All the Noise in the Room. It's supposed to come out later this year. And then I have a new one that I have hesitated to send out because honestly, I didn't want to publish 4 books in 1 year. You know, the publishers don't like to see things lumped up like that. You can understand why, you know. So I'll hope to get that last manuscript called One Floor Elevator, maybe out for 2025.
For
And
someone who doesn't write every day, you seem to be very prolific.
I
Yeah.
am prolific, but it's probably more to do with the nature of the genre I work in. I'm not working in a novel like Tim is, or I think Ray is. I'm not working in that because that takes a long time to write a novel, or a memoir, you know. But I work in these micros, and they're blasts. They're like a blip on the radar screen. Boom, it's there. Boom, it's down. Go on to the next one. And because I am prolific in that sense, and when I'm in a particular rolling mood, I've written a 220-page or a collection in 6 weeks. It's done, you know, get it out and on to the next one. So, you know, it's that kind of thing. You know, it affords me the opportunity to put manuscripts together pretty quickly.
All right, we got any more questions?
Thank you so much.
Quick question. It appears to me like, I think in this day and age, there's a lot of like boutique publishers and a lot of, they're way above the old vanity press.
Oh, yeah.
So with boutique publishers, are there any that you've heard of that are any good? Would you
Yeah, that's a good question. And of course, you have to define what a boutique publisher is. Now, there's publishers that when you send them the manuscript, and I'm not telling Tim anything he doesn't know because he's been there, they do everything for you. You send them the manuscript. If they like it, then they take care of the ISBN, they take care of the printing of the book, the cover of the book, they take care of the editing of the book, they take care of Amazoning the book, and so on and so forth. That's an all-purpose, small, even tiny presses do that. The boutique publishing is going to be out of pocket. And I don't know whether you call something like Amazon or Lulu or something like that boutique publishing, which 30 years ago, 20 years ago, they would be called self-publishing, that or vanity presses. I know a lot of people now who go that route because they know what a bumpy road it is to go looking for an all-purpose press, and they've had success with it, and they've had a good experience with it, and the books look good. And the stigma of doing something like that has been lessened because so many people are doing it, and some good writers are doing it too. That's what I see as the boutique publishing.
Well, all right, so just a quick definition. As a writer, you can hire on your own everything you need and put it out yourself. So it's basically what a boutique publisher is. It's an actual publisher, and it's like a menu. Here is our editor. Here is our cover designer. Which one do you need? You can need some of them, all of them, or none of them, but they're all a la carte.
Yeah, and to me that is still akin to self-publishing, because and maybe it's my old guy status here, that if you have to pay for something to publish a book, it's self-publishing. I came through the old system of college English, ended up with a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in English, and the idea of getting a work published that you have to pay anything for was verboten. It was just and so I couldn't stand up proudly if I published a book. Now that's maybe naive and silly, because so what? We're in a different age. The internet didn't exist. There's been a big shift in the paradigm. So it's, if you have the few dollars, I have a friend of mine who's published 6 books, and I said, through Amazon, and I said, well, how much did you pay? And he said, I didn't have to pay anything. He didn't pay anything. He said, we split it 50-50. I made $500. It paid for the book. And I thought, well, there's the new world there, you know? And he said, and so, because I would say to him, why are you taking these books to Amazon for self-publishing? Why don't you take them to, a commercial press? And he said, you know something? He said, this is better. This is, for me, this is better. I don't want to deal with that other stuff. I know now this kind of publishing requires your involvement a lot more, much more. And some people like it. They like to have the control of what their book looks like and what it's going to be like and all of this stuff. So it's a different, it's not so bad. I never did it. I would never want to do it. But it doesn't mean in this day and age that if you have such a passion to see something published, then hell, rather than have it just end up in a dusty drawer somewhere and never be seen or realized, get it up on Amazon, make it into a reality, have faith in what you've done, because there are those stories of people clicking. For some reason, all of a sudden, the book sells 5,000 copies, and then boom, all of a sudden a commercial press comes in and says, oh, we'd like to publish this under our imprint. That's happened a lot of times, so.
And that 5,000 is like a really sweet spot. If you sell too many, they're like, all your readers have already bought it. But if you don't sell enough, they're not interested, because they want to make, the bottom line is publishers aren't like, they're not necessarily artists, they're businesses.
Oh, sure.
And they want that sweet spot because they want it. Same with agents. They're not your best friend. They want to make money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if they're honest and they see what they get from you and they don't think they're going to make any money, they're going to just tell you. But a lot of the agents want to string you along because they think, well, we'll keep sending it out and see what happens there. And it's a loss of time for you to do it. So you have to be wary of that.
And a lot of agents kind of fall into these old traps too. Like you're querying an agent, they're like, how many social media followers do you have? Which is fine and dandy to give them a number. But the people, there was a study out that says the number of followers you have doesn't translate into sales.
Yeah. And also, for example, I have 1,700 followers on Facebook. Maybe 2% see what I post. That's the algorithm. So you can't be fooled into thinking, wow, I send this out about my new book, 1,750 people. No, maybe.
I used to, when I posted a blog post on Twitter, the post was viewed automatically by 25 people, just within seconds. I did one this week. It had 2 views in like a couple hours. I'm like, yeah, something's up here, Elon. Something is up. And
it tends to be the same people. The same people who see your post are the ones you see time and time and time again. So it becomes like preaching to the choir. If I post a book and 2 months ago they bought one of my books, they're going to say, oh, I bought Mike's book a couple of months ago, because they've been there, they've seen it. I don't get it.
You would make more money asking your 1,700 followers for 50 cents each on GoFundMe than
totally.
Than those 1,700 actually buying the book to do it.
Yeah.
I hear that this is not a binary way. No absolutes, no black and white. Either go the trad route or go the new route. But it seems my question, I guess, is it depends. Your mileage may vary on all this stuff. But my question to Michael is, Michael, do commercial publishers now value some internet or some entrepreneurial savvy that you may possess, and then they say, okay, well, now we know that you know this? Is that
okay. More and more even the big publishers, Knopf and Dutton and Random House, first of all, they expect you have an author's website. So if you don't have an author's website, that's the first thing you're going to need to get made. You have to have that, right? And then, you know, then the follow-up to that, which is what you already said, is a lot of publishers, even the big houses, expect that you're going to help with marketing because now you have a website, you have access to social media, and more, unfortunately for the author, is publishers are relying on the authors to do the heavy lifting for their damn book. And that pisses me off, especially now. You can understand why a small, tiny publisher would really rely on your help with your social media and your website and whatnot. But a lot of the smaller publishers are guilty of the fact that they figure, well, we made the book, we posted it on Amazon, now promoting it is your problem.
And there's another narrative around that too. So very often a small publisher is small. It might be 2 people, it might be 8 people.
Yeah.
So those 2 people are on to the next book.
Oh yeah, they
Work
don't
with
have
you,
time.
and that's it.
No, there are one-person shops out there that actually do a good job putting out a book. You know, they may do 5 books a year, 6 books, and they do a good job, but they just don't have the resources to promote the book. They don't have the money to put it in a magazine or wherever they're going to go. And they don't, like Tim said, they do not have the time. So it's a mixed blessing to get a book published at, you know, a small press. One, it's wonderful that they're there because they publish your book and they publish it on what nickel they have. But the other thing is they don't have the resources nor the time to promote it. So about the only thing that you have left is your own social media, and you can direct them to Amazon and different sites where the book is for sale. But you know, your reach is so limited. And so it's, you know, it's rewarding in that the book comes out. It's unrewarding in that it is mostly unseen.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap up. Michael, can you are people going to, can they reach out to you and email you any further?
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I have a website, michaelckeith.com, michaelckeith.com, or you can reach out to me at my email or Facebook. I assume everybody's on Facebook. Yes, no. Yeah, just go to my page on Facebook and message me. That's probably as quick as anything. There is a contact page on my website. You know, I don't know if anybody uses it, you know, so probably the Facebook messaging is the easiest thing to do. Does anybody not have Facebook? Because if you don't, I'll just give you my email address. So it looks like everybody has it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And, you know, this was really great. So I appreciate you a lot, Mike.
Hey, good luck to all. And don't hesitate to come to me and ask me questions. You know, really, please do. All right.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
really great of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time today, Michael. It's very informative and encouraging. A lot of times we
And
get people
keep-
here that
yeah.
aren't so encouraging.
and if you don't have $3,000, Michael will not narrate your audiobook.
You have a good memory there, Tim, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, guys,
Thank you so much. It's been great.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.